What the hell have you done to me?
What? What have I done?
You've given me herpes.
Herpes? No, I haven't.
The doctor diagnosed it and it has to be you. I've got disgusting sores everywhere. They're all over my face, they've spread down below, I can't pee, I can't walk, I'm in agony.
It's not me. You must have been sleeping around.
What? Screw you. I have to live with this for the rest of my life. I'm diseased. You've ruined me forever. I'll never forgive you.
3 months later, Emily Myers found herself standing on the edge of a subway platform, tears streaming down her face. Before her diagnosis, she felt in the prime of her life, 26 years old, confident, attractive, and with a loving boyfriend. Now, she was alone. Word had spread about her diagnosis as fast as the virus she'd been plagued with. Everyone knew. Cruel messages were splashed across her social media pages. She saw disgust and revulsion in the eyes of her friends and family. She felt dirty, diseased. She knew no man would ever want her again. How could they? She had herpes. She was tainted for life, and there was nothing she could do. In that second, Emily made a decision. She stepped close to the platform edge, closed her eyes, and jumped. So why am I sharing this tragic story with you today? Well, because as it turns out, it's anything but tragic. Because not only did Emily miraculously survive, but after living with herpes simplex virus for over 2 years, she regained her health and freedom, effectively treating the terrible sickness lurking through her body. Both the oral HSV1 strain and genital HSV2 strain. And you can do it too. Because whatever you may have been told by your doctor, the drug companies, or the mainstream media, there has been a major discovery in the treatment of the herpes simplex virus, which has already changed the lives of thousands of sufferers. A discovery so powerful and effective, which unfortunately, as I'm about to reveal, has been deliberately kept from you by what I believe to be a corrupt and dishonest pharmaceutical industry hell-bent on profiting from your misery. So why has herpes been so difficult to effectively treat up until now? Herpes works by invading healthy cells and taking control of them. It then replicates itself, attacks in numbers, and then retreats, hiding from the immune system, which allows it to remain in your body forever. But the good news is, that's no longer the case. Because thanks to a remarkable new discovery by scientists at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, coupled with a bizarre meeting of special force soldiers in a sleepy fishing village on the edge of the Moroccan desert, you can now activate a newly discovered kill switch within the virus itself using a simple and completely natural homemade remedy, which will alter its DNA structure, prevent it from making copies of itself, and put it to sleep, and then unleash your immune system to find the virus, flush it out of hiding, and kill it dead. In fact, this cellular search and destroy mission is clinically proven to eliminate 97% of your painful and embarrassing symptoms in practically no time. And best of all, effectively cleanse your body of this horrible disease in as little time as possible starting today. I'm talking no more ugly cold sores breaking on your lips. No more painful sores and blisters down below. No more embarrassment, shame, and humiliation caused by the stigma of herpes. No more fear of infecting another human being or a sexual partner finding out that you're damaged goods. No more worrying about when or where the outbreak may occur, or dealing with the stress and inconvenience of having to hide your dirty little secret from the world. Nope, you don't need to worry about that ever again. And if you're one of those people who thinks, hey, I'm fine, thanks, I'll just take some antiviral drugs, then think again. Because today's expensive medications not only fail to kill the herpes virus, but can actually lead to potential devastating complications. And I'm going to reveal how and why a little later, along with 3 frightening and little known risks to your health if you choose to ignore this presentation and decide to just live with this disease instead. This pioneering treatment method, which effectively uncloaks the hiding herpes virus before it wipes out completely, is so new and so unconventional, I can almost guarantee that you nor your doctor will have ever heard about it before. It's already been used in over 64,000 people and counting, including professional athletes, international business leaders, and Hollywood celebrities, people you know by name. And it's scientifically proven to work whether you're male or female, young or old, suffering from oral or genital herpes, or been dealing with the disease for days, months, years, or even decades. And the best part is, it's fast, 100% natural, and completely safe. But before I reveal any more, it's important you understand that this presentation may not be online much longer. So you need to take this opportunity to watch it now and until the very end while you still have the chance. The herpes drug market is now a $5 billion industry and growing fast. And as I discovered to my cost, these companies will stop at nothing to prevent this fast and natural treatment making it into the public domain. So if you want to eliminate the herpes virus from your body starting today, then be sure to keep watching. Because the secret lies in nothing more than these 3 simple ingredients, enjoyed by the people of Morocco for centuries. Yup, 3 cheap, readily available, and delicious ingredients that you can pick up from your local grocery store today. In just a second, I'm going to reveal what these 3 ingredients are, as well as the bizarre story of how I came to stumble upon them. A discovery that has already changed the lives of tens of thousands of people across the world. People like Tony Rose of Blairsville, Georgia, who says,
"After being infected with HSV-2, my confidence was completely shattered. I became the butt of cruel jokes and was nicknamed Herpy even by my closest friends. My boyfriend dumped me, and I even had to quit my job because of the shame. But less than a month after I discovered this program, I can finally say I am finally herpes-free. I cannot thank you enough for this."
And then there's Jeremy Campbell of Seattle, Washington, who says,
"Been living with both forms of the virus for more than 20 years after my first intimate relationship back in my teenage days. This curse affected every relationship that I ever had, leaving me emotionally scarred for years. Sincerely, I thought I would never be able to escape the virus after trying everything there was in the market, but I was so wrong. And now I can proudly say that I'm free of the herpes virus, both HSV-1 and HSV-2. I got my self-confidence back and I'm about to get married in the following weeks."
Now, if you're a little skeptical about all of this, I completely understand. Which is why in just a few minutes from now, I'm going to show you scientific evidence which proves how the herpes simplex virus, both 1 and 2, can be effectively treated starting today, as well as the exact steps you need to take to do it yourself. But before we get to that, let me first introduce myself and explain why I decided to create this presentation. Hi, my name's Cody Morgan, and although I'm ashamed of it, I'm the man who accidentally infected Emily with the herpes virus. To tell you a little bit about me, I'm a former Special Ops combat medic in the United States Army and a specialist in training wounded soldiers in the field of battle. In fact, I've served 3 tours of duty across Iraq and Afghanistan. There, I performed countless surgeries under heavy gunfire. I'm telling you this because in fighting the Taliban and IS, I'm used to dealing with cowardly enemies who prefer to lurk in the shadows, stay hidden, and strike when you least expect it. And as a Special Ops medic, I'm used to winning the battle. And that's exactly what I've done here. But before I reveal how, let me first tell you a quick story, because when you hear it, you'll understand why I've been so desperate to crush this terrible disease once and for all. It's an embarrassing story for both myself and Emily, but we've agreed to tell it so that no one else has to suffer the way that we did. It all started more than 2 years ago, when I met Emily at a charity fundraiser for veterans. She was there with her father, who fought in the first Gulf War. The second we met, sparks flew, and we fell in love. But after just a couple of months, our blissful little bubble would burst in the cruelest way possible. I was at home in the kitchen when suddenly there was a loud bang on the door. I opened it to find Emily standing there looking like she'd seen a ghost. Her eyes were bright red and filled with tears. A second later, she slapped me right on the face. With such force, she cut me above my left eye. "You've given me herpes," she screamed. I was shocked. I literally had no idea what she was talking about. After she calmed down, Emily told me the reason why she hadn't been around for a couple of weeks, and it sounded like hell. Apparently, a few days after we'd slept together, she said she noticed a cold sore come up on her top lip. It was ugly, and it made her feel self-conscious. So she decided to stay in for a few days until it scabbed over and healed. The problem was, a few days after that, she started to feel unbearable pain downstairs. She said it was like someone was stabbing her in the crotch, while giving her a rug burn, while pouring acid over the top. The next day, she spotted a couple of little sores down there. She freaked out and went to see her doctor the same day, who did a test. A few days later, and the test came back. She had both forms of herpes at the same time. Imagine that. So trust me, if you ever get cold sores or HSV1 and you think you're protected from HSV2, think again. Because you could have both forms of herpes caused by the same type of herpes virus at the same time. And having one doesn't protect you against the other. Emily was convinced that I must have given her the disease. But as far as I knew, I was clean. But she swore to me that she hadn't slept with anyone else. So I agreed to get tested. And that's when I discovered the devastating truth. I had herpes too. And worst of all, I'd given it to the woman I loved. So you're probably wondering how I didn't know I had it. Well, here's the thing. Herpes doesn't always show itself. Remember, it likes to hide. And it's the best virus there is at doing it. According to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, or the CDC, many people with herpes don't show any symptoms. So they'll have no idea they even have it. This is why the disease is spread so easily. So believe me when I say, if you have herpes type 1 or 2, it's not your fault. You're not to blame. Because the person who gave it to you may not have even known they had it themselves. But of course, at the time, that meant nothing to me. Emily had herpes, and it was me who'd given it to her. I felt guilt like you can't imagine. Especially when Emily's symptoms continued to get worse. For weeks, she suffered from pus-filled blisters on her lip, a raging, burning sensation down below, and pain and discomfort with every step. But that wasn't the worst part. Not even close. Because although the physical pain of herpes felt like torture to Emily, the emotional pain would become even worse after word of her diagnosis spread. People from her hometown started leaving disgusting messages on her Facebook, her TikTok, even her Instagram page, and posting sick jokes on Twitter, which left her crying for days. Emily's parents seemed embarrassed and ashamed of their own daughter, and lifelong friends started behaving differently around her. Over time, they stopped calling, the invitations to nights out and parties dried up. It was like she had leprosy. People were frightened that if they touched her, they'd catch it. So what did she do about it? Well, what you're about to hear will make you absolutely mad. Like most of us, Emily listened to the advice of her doctor, who couldn't wait to get her onto expensive meds. The doc started her on Zovirax and later Fanvar. But here's why I advise you to steer well clear of these toxic antiviral drugs. Firstly, the side effects were almost as bad as the virus itself. Emily suffered from headaches, fatigue, stomach pain, diarrhea, and frequent vomiting. So the doc switched her to Valtrex. Not long after, she began to complain about a dull pain in her lower back, which we later realized was due to her kidneys breaking down. That's because Valtrex has been shown for years to affect kidney function and cause renal toxicity and kidney failure in previously healthy people. According to a 2016 study into the drug and its effect on the kidneys, scientists discovered that the renal function of a healthy human subjects was damaged as quickly as 12 to 48 hours after the drug was administered. But of course, that doesn't stop Big Pharma from profiting from these dangerous drugs, despite there being a natural and inexpensive way to treat the virus with nothing but 3 simple ingredients, which I'm going to reveal in just a second. But if you thought all that was bad, get this. The drugs Emily was prescribed didn't even stop the breakouts. Not one bit. The virus just kept on coming back again and again. And why did this continually happen? Because if you didn't already know, not a single one of these drugs is able to treat the herpes virus, or even prevent the spread of the disease to other people. In fact, a study published in the Lancet Journal found that even when patients were put on the highest doses of these drugs, not only did the virus survive, but the rate of breakouts remained unchanged, with symptoms flaring up even more than before, almost 2 times a month. Incredible, right? We're talking about a $4.8 billion market for drugs that don't work, and they never have. All these drugs can do is treat the symptoms. They never attempt to get to the root cause of the virus in order to actually kill it and stop it from coming back, because that would destroy Big Pharma's dirty little income stream overnight. But these meds at least suppress the virus, right? And get rid of the symptoms a little faster? Sure, for now, in some people. But multiple studies are now showing that the herpes virus is becoming increasingly resistant to today's drugs, meaning they will soon stop working altogether, which is exactly what happened to Emily. The attacks became more and more severe and painful, took far longer to heal, and began to cover larger areas of her body. A recent study in Sweden found that people with herpes are twice as likely to develop memory-related problems. Now, of course, I understand that Emily's case was severe, and your symptoms and number of outbreaks might be a lot less. But if you're happy to carry on living with the herpes virus inside your body and choose to ignore what I'm about to show you, you'll be putting your health at serious risk. And for 3 very important reasons. More than 30 experts are now in full agreement that the herpes virus is one of the major causes of dementia. The type 1 herpes simplex virus, which results in cold sores, is also proven to cause eye herpes or ocular herpes. This is a common and recurring viral infection of the cornea that can lead to scarring, vision loss, and blindness. To illustrate how serious this risk is, a massive 50,000 new and recurring cases are reported every year, according to the National Eye Institute. So think about that the next time you decide to rub your eyes. And if it wasn't worrying enough, the CDC states that the herpes virus can be passed from mother to child during pregnancy, childbirth, or even as a newborn, which can lead to brain damage, blindness, or even death. With Emily struggling to come to terms with her diagnosis, we eventually split up, and I agreed to give Emily her space. I heard nothing from her for months, until I got a phone call that made my blood run cold. It was from her brother James, who I still kept in contact with. Apparently, Emily had sunk into a deep depression and had become isolated and withdrawn. James said it seemed like the light in her head had just been turned off. She was no longer the happy, bubbly, fun-loving sister he knew and loved. This was made worse when a few months after we'd split, Emily met a guy who she'd fell hard for. She knew she had to be truthful about her STD before things went any further. So after a few dates, she plucked up the courage to tell him and then watched the look in his eyes change. She didn't hear from him again. The next morning on the way to work, Emily was standing on the edge of the subway platform. A man standing beside her noticed how upset she looked and how she kept creeping closer and closer to the platform edge. He tried to talk to her, but Emily ignored him, keeping her eyes fixed firmly on the tracks. The man had a bad feeling in his stomach and decided to inch closer to this pretty young girl with sadness in her eyes. As the train hurtled through the station, Emily jumped. But the man was able to grab her arm just in time, pulling her to safety, thus preventing a sure tragedy. When James told me this, I felt sick, and the stress of it all led to my own breakout. A painful group of blisters filled with yellow pus appeared on my top lip, and I was ashamed to show my face for weeks. My own herpes virus had finally come out of hiding. Like Emily, I believed what the doctors told me, and all I could do was try to lessen the symptoms with expensive drugs. I was resigned to the fact that both of us would be stuck with this disease for the rest of our lives, and there was nothing we could do to change it, or so I thought. I'm a devout Christian, and although I no longer saw Emily, I still prayed to God to look after her, and not long after, I think he finally heard me. Not that I knew it at the time, I received a call from the Special Ops Command telling me I was to be part of an Operation Flintlock, a joint military training exercise between Special Ops forces from the US and Moroccan armies. The training camp was designed to combat the extremist organizations, and our base was a small fishing village called Tifnit in the south of Morocco, with more than 2,000 military personnel from 24 African and Western countries. I was expecting a routine training camp, but little did I know that Operation Flintlock would unlock the secret to eradicating the herpes virus, and in the most bizarre way you can imagine. Now, I won't go into too much detail, but let's just say, when you have 2,000 people cooped up together in a month-long training camp, men and women, things get a little frisky, shall I say. I was a good boy, I promise. Anyway, as I was the medic at the camp, at the beginning of the third week, an American soldier came to me with a problem. He had a cold sore and he had noticed an issue down below. After my own experience, I recognized that as a herpes straight away. He was freaked out, but all I could do was give him some Tylenol to ease the pain and told him to scrub his hands regularly to avoid passing on the virus. And that was that. Until later that day, when an African woman translator came to see me with the exact same problem. Over the next few days, another 19 men and 27 women reported the same symptoms, either oral herpes, genital herpes, or both. I couldn't believe what was happening. It was spreading around camp like a plague. But I soon noticed something unusual about those infected. None of the Moroccan men or women had reported any symptoms. It was only the Americans and some of the other Africans. With Emily still in the back of my mind, not to mention my own history with the disease, I was determined to find out why. I started to ask some questions around camp, and soon discovered that the Moroccan units always prepared their own food and always ate together. Was it just a coincidence? Or could the food they were eating be protecting them from the herpes virus and essentially making them immune to the disease? My theory was supported when that very night I did some digging online and found the impact of genital herpes in Morocco was lower than anywhere else in the world. The next day I visited the chef who's prepared all the Moroccan army's meals. I asked him for a list of every ingredient he used in every meal he cooked, and I jotted it all down in my notebook. The minute I returned home to the US, I began delving deeper into the herpes virus again. I poured through medical journals, scientific studies, and anything else I could find, desperately searching for any kind of link between the herpes virus and these strange Moroccan foods. And that's when I finally realized what had been happening. A few years ago, scientists discovered that the reason the herpes simplex virus couldn't be cured was because of something called transcription and camouflage. This essentially means that the virus is able to invade the host cells and take control of it, which then allows it to hide within your nervous system, evading your body's natural immune defenses. Undetected, the herpes virus is then free to invade other cells and make copies of itself, and on it goes, like a chameleon, but 1,000 times more dangerous. Imagine a terrorist killing a US soldier and then slipping into his uniform. He can then hide in plain sight within the army ranks and then kill again, and do this over and over. That's essentially what's happening with the herpes virus inside your body. And after the virus attacks, causing a herpes outbreak, it retreats back into hiding again until next time. But get this, back in 2014, a team led by Thomas Christie, a chief of molecular genetics at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, uncovered a startling breakthrough. They discovered that a drug called transcyclopromine, or TCP, could block a protein called LSD1, the exact protein that herpes exploits to kickstart the camouflaging process. According to the study, blocking this protein forced the virus to remain in a latent stage, preventing its reactivation. This was amazing news. It meant that instead of relying on antiviral drugs, which only work to reduce the symptoms after the virus has replicated itself billions of times and caused an outbreak, it would now be finally possible to stop the virus replicating at all. In short, they have found a kill switch, a way to turn off the gene that the herpes virus needed to thrive and spread. This ability to turn genetics on and off is known as the epigenetic therapy. But there was a problem. TCP wasn't licensed for herpes or even safe to use. Common side effects included hives, difficulty breathing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, and throat, headaches, vision problems, tightness in the chest, vomiting, dizziness, tremors, and much, much more. But get this. Tucked away in the pages of an obscure medical journal, I found a little-known study that took place at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine back in 2014. During the study, researchers had found that 3 completely natural ingredients, resveratrol, curcumin, and quercetin, which displayed a potent inhibitory effect on LSD-1 activity. But even more incredibly, the study reported that the 3 ingredients were found to be more potent than the known LSD-1 inhibitor, TCP. I couldn't believe it. The TCP drug was scientifically proven to block the LSD-1 protein, which stopped the herpes virus from replicating, put it to sleep, and prevented it from reactivating. Amazing, isn't it? And now, this study from one of the most esteemed medical colleges in the world was saying that 3 completely natural ingredients, curcumin, quercetin, and resveratrol, were more potent than TCP at blocking the LSD-1 protein. And that's when it finally hit me. The ingredients in the Moroccan soldiers' meals were packed full of curcumin, quercetin, and resveratrol. I mean, they were absolutely loaded with them. Was this why none of the Moroccan soldiers contracted herpes? Excited, I started looking deeper into the ingredients. I discovered that the first one, curcumin, is the primary compound in turmeric. And as I studied the chef's recipes, turmeric was in practically every meal that he prepared for the Moroccan soldiers. In fact, the turmeric has been an essential staple in Moroccan cuisine for centuries, which may explain their low rate of herpes and the soldiers' apparent immunity. A study published in the medical journal Virology, for example, found that curcumin prevents the replication of the herpes virus by inhibiting the activity of its viral protein and preventing genes from promoting the virus's replication and ability to infect. In other words, curcumin and turmeric stops the virus dead in its track from multiplying and infecting other healthy cells. Another study I found said that curcumin had remarkable antiviral effects on HSV-1, while another report that curcumin reduced HSV-2 activity by a whopping 50%. Then I started delving into the second ingredient, quercetin, a powerful antiviral found in red onions, raisins, tomatoes, olive oil, and peppers. And countless studies have demonstrated quercetin's antiviral effect against both oral and genital herpes. Quercetin extracted from apples, for example, has been shown to inhibit both HSV-1 and HSV-2 replication by greater than 50%, while a study in India found that quercetin has virucidal properties. In other words, it kills both HSV-1 and HSV-2 viruses. And finally, there was a third ingredient, resveratrol, a disease-defying polyphenol found in huge quantities in red grapes and as a result red wine, which the Moroccan soldiers drink every night with their meals. In fact, red wine is so popular in Morocco, it makes up over 75% of the country's production. How important is this? Very. A study carried out at the Indian Council of Medical Research reported that resveratrol was able to prevent the spreading of HSV-1 and HSV-2 by blocking activation of the inflammatory TCP protein. Once again, this was proof that we could block the protein that the herpes virus uses to kickstart transcription, take over healthy human cells, and then make copies of itself without the need for doctors or drugs. It all finally made sense. These 3 powerful ingredients were the key to eradicating herpes. But why hadn't any doctor told me about this before? Why wasn't it on the news? Why wasn't the American Herpes Foundation, the organization that claims to be dedicated to improving the management of herpes virus infections, shouting this from the rooftops? And then I figured out the answer. Money. Guess who the 2 biggest founders of the American Herpes Foundation are? GlaxoSmithKline, who manufactures Valtrex and Zorvax, and Novartis Pharmaceuticals, who manufacture Femzor. 2 multinational drug giants who collectively pocket billions selling useless herpes meds to the American people. It was now crystal clear to me that this research had been buried. it was never going to see the light of day. At least not until those companies had used it to create an expensive, marketable drug. Naturally, I was angry, disgusted even. After all, the people we rely on to make us healthy were only interested in profiting from our pain and misery. When there was an undeniably scientific proof that 3 safe and 100% natural ingredients could crush the herpes virus. But if you think you can simply start gorging yourself on these 3 ingredients and your herpes will disappear, think again, because that's only half the story. You see, I soon realized that getting the curcumin, casein, and resveratrol into my diet regularly and in the right amounts was impossible. I had no idea what I was doing. The meals I created were disgusting, and I didn't have the first idea whether they were even working. I also knew that although these ingredients were amazing at preventing HSV1 and HSV2 from replicating and spreading, the virus would still be alive in my body and Emily's. That wasn't good enough for me. I wanted to wipe it out and kill it dead so it never came back. But I didn't know how. I needed help. And I got it in the shape of Charles Ellis, a lifelong friend, scientist, and specialist in the germ warfare with more than 20 years of experience, collaborating as an independent medical researcher with top universities from all over the world. As it turned out, Charles had a personal interest in the disease. His own son had been diagnosed with HSV2 3 years before, and he was just as desperate for a treatment as I was. I explained all about my discovery and the research I'd found into the LSD1 protein, and excited by the prospect, Charles agreed to help me. He was as generous as I could have hoped, but with no official funding in place, it took all of my savings to fund a private 6-month research study, which he carried out in a state-of-the-art laboratory. Charles took all of my research and began testing and trialing the 3 ingredients on mice in an attempt to create the perfect natural formula for blocking the LSD1 protein. But he was convinced he can go much further. So he began experimenting with hundreds of other natural antivirals too, including spices, vitamins, minerals, polyphenols, and other compounds in an attempt to make the formula even more powerful. He eventually settled on a powerful blend of natural ingredients, including a powerful plants, greens, and fruits mix, which in a study performed at the Southern California University eliminated all herpes virus symptoms in 87% of participants within 6 days. A breakfast times table that outperformed Zorvarax by a massive 59% when it came to the healing time of genital sores, according to a study published in the journal Medical Science Monitor. And an everyday cooking ingredient which, when tested by researchers at Brigham Young University Department of Microbiology, was found to destroy the herpes virus on contact, killing 90% of it within 30 minutes of applying it to a laboratory dish. But the even better news was to come. Although Charles had used my research to develop the ultimate natural formula for uncloaking the herpes virus, putting it to sleep, and preventing it from replicating, it wasn't fully dead. If we really wanted to kill the virus and cleanse the body of the disease effectively, there was one more thing we needed to do. We needed to supercharge the immune system and arm it with the weapons it needed to flush out the sleeping virus and effectively wipe it out so it never came back. So over the next few months, we went out to work on the final stage of the plan. Eventually, Charles's research unearthed a treasure trove of the most powerful immunity boosters on the planet, including a popular drink which when consumed for just 2 weeks produced 10 times more virus-fighting interferons in the blood than a placebo, according to a Harvard study. And the natural occurring hormone found in certain fatty foods that showed dramatic improvements in all markers of immune function, including a 37% increase in natural killer cells, according to a 20-week study at the University of California in San Diego. Using all of this cutting-edge research, Charles and I spent the last few months developing a sophisticated 2-part search and destroy protocol. And to make it as easy as possible to follow, the protocol consisted of delicious smoothies. What's more, Charles had designed it so that you only need to drink 1 smoothie each day. It was that simple. Phase 1, the search phase, was based on a unique natural ingredients mix, clinically proven to block the LSD1 protein and stop it from multiplying, therefore effectively unmasking the virus so it can no longer hide from your immune system. And phase 2, the destroy phase, when all the powerful ingredients are activated to unleash the full force of the body's immune system and effectively wipe out the virus. As you can see, Charles's protocol went way beyond my initial research into the Moroccan diet, sparked by Operation Flintlock. In fact, thanks to his expertise and dedication, the final recipe was created up to 17 times more powerful than the meals consumed by the Moroccan soldiers, who had been virtually immune to the herpes virus. It was clear that nothing like this had ever been attempted before, and I was desperate to put the smoothie recipes to the test. Of course, I was the obvious candidate to be the human guinea pig, but the problem was, I was busy training junior medical assistants, and there was no way I was going to be able to stick to the protocol while Charles's son was away at college. With no time to waste, I thought of one person, Emily. By this stage, we hadn't been in contact for over 2 years. So when I called her and told her what I'd been doing, she thought I was crazy. It took a lot of persuading to convince her to give the protocol a try, but eventually she did and agreed to meet with Charles on a daily basis to monitor her progress. The next morning, fully armed with the smoothie recipes, Emily took a trip to her local grocery store to pick up all of the ingredients she needed and began phase 1, the search phase. Just a few days before, she'd suffered another outbreak, so it was the perfect time to test out the protocol. After a few days of drinking the smoothies, the cold sore on her lip had dried up and disappeared. Emily was excited at how quickly it had worked, so Charles performed a PCR blood test and a cell culture to see if the virus was still alive. The results weren't good. The virus still was present, but she agreed to give the smoothies another go, and then she repeated the test. Again, it was bad news. Emily was seriously starting to doubt everything I've told her. But Charles warned her not to give up, that the formula was working, but it would take time to clear the body. At this point, she was more skeptical than ever. But then, just after a couple of short weeks, something remarkable happened, and it's a moment I'll never forget. I'd returned from my training course and was at home alone, dozing in my armchair, when suddenly there was a loud knock at the door that jolted me awake. I opened it to find Emily